Judaism 101. Past few times I've been teaching about the distinction between what I'm calling Israelite religion and the beginning of Judaism. And the beginning, what we call Judaism, begins roughly 500, 400 CE. Biblical Judaism, or Israelite religion, ends with the destruction of the temple, 586. And then, of course, there's a century where they're trying to figure out what exactly they're going to do in Babylonia. Remember, the sovereign, the king, the elites are all exiled to Babylonia in 586. They're not persecuted there. Clearly, it seems that the king has a palace there. They've taken all the archives there. And it looks like they're trying to figure out what they're going to do, whether it's over because the kingdom of Judea was defeated, or as they understood it, that this was God's wrath for their sinning, for the country gone wayward, country gone wrong, and therefore they asked for God's compassion, God's forgiveness. And when King Koresh, when the emperor of Persia came to power in 537, conquered Babylonia and allowed the Judeans to go back, they understood that the exile was over and they could go back to Judea. However, a large number stayed in Babylonia. So in Judea and Babylonia, you have the beginnings of what we call Second Temple Judaism. Now, what the main feature of Second Temple Judaism, we're going to focus on two different things. So this is how, as it were, the Judaism that we know as Judaism, which is the ism of the Judeans, that's all Judaism means, has two distinguishing features. One is the creation of the text. Now, remember, in ancient Israelite religion, the oracle of God was the prophet. So, for example, when Moshe is teaching the laws in the book of Exodus chapter 19, he says, the judges will decide the law. If you find something that you can't decide, come to me. And he says he's going to lidrosh et ha-Elohim. He's going to inquire of God. So what did the prophet do? People inquired of the prophet or the Kohen, and the prophet or the Kohen, we use the word lidrosh, to seek out the word of God. So one of the meanings of the word lidrosh, or the word darash in its simple verb form, means to seek out or seek out the word of God. Now, the text, the Torah, is canonized, which means is organized and is promulgated as the official text. It would not be added to, it would not be subtracted from. It was fixed and canonized no later than 400 CE, after a long process, by the way. And most people attribute this to Ezra the scribe. And the fact that he's called Ezra the scribe tells us a lot, because the scribe was not just one who was a scribe in the written sense. The scribe meant in charge of the text. So one thing that creates Second Temple and eventually Rabbinic Judaism is the authority of the text. But much more than the authority of the text was understood to be the oracle of God, which means the institution of prophecy ended. In fact, it says in the Talmud, prophecy ended, and the age of the sages came into being. Now, what is the age of the sages? The text was the oracle, but only if you knew how to interpret it properly. The expertise of seeking out the word of God in the text is called midrash. Now, when we think of midrash, we usually think of a midrash meaning a story or some kind of non-legal teaching. Originally, midrash meant extracting meaning from the text from a legal perspective or from a non-legal perspective. The legal perspective came to be called the halacha, the law that we should observe. And the non-legal perspective was called the agadah, no H, agadah, A-G-G-A-D-A-H. So as people began, we'll say the authorized interpreters, not yet rabbis, that word didn't come into being until the 1st century CE. So we're going to call them the sages. The sages were the official interpreters of the text. They knew the rules of midrash, which means going down into the text that we call the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, extracting meaning from it, either halachic, legal, or non-halachic, agadic. So in that first several centuries, think of every verse was plumbed by what came to be called the sages, and they drew out meanings of every verse of the text. So the meanings drawn out of the written text, the Torah Shebechtav, the written text, came to be called the Torah Shebe'al Peh, the oral text. Be'al Peh means on the mouth, but it's just an idiom that means oral. So now, one thing that characterizes Second Temple and then Rabbinic Judaism is Torah Shebechtav. We actually have the 5 books of Moses as the official Torah. The word Torah means teaching. It doesn't mean 5 books of Moses. And then we have the Torah Shebe'al Peh, the oral Torah, that is mostly derived from careful examination or midrash of the text. The official word for this in Bible studies, by the way, is exegesis. Exegesis means careful, disciplined study of the text to bring out the deeper meaning. We had a phrase we used a long time ago when our synagogue first began. It was Jews for exegesis. And I haven't dropped it. We thought about making a bumper sticker. Maybe we will. Anyway, so what does it mean to be a rabbinic Jew, Second Temple onward? It means you're a Jew for exegesis, which means we want to subject the text to careful analysis, out of which comes the Torah Shebe'al Peh, the oral Torah. The other institution that seems to have been created around this time, and again, it's not, the historical record is so meager, and we're referring a lot from a very limited record, but it seems to be that by the way, that the place that happened was called the Beit Midrash, the house of exegesis, or the house of the careful study of the Torah Shebechtav, the written Torah, to produce the Torah Shebe'al Peh. We're going to say that happened over here. And then over here we have what's called the Beit Knesset, the house of assembly. The Knesset in Israel is called the assembly. So Beit Knesset, the house of assembly. What happened over there was the embryonic beginnings of the tefillah, what came to be the prayer service. So already we're going to call this between 500, 400, and so forth. 2 institutions come into being that define Second Temple Judaism all the way to modern Judaism, which is the Beit Midrash, the study of the text, and the Beit Knesset, engaging in tefillah. At first, it was not organized. It was very spontaneous. It didn't begin as an official Siddur. That coalesced over time. So for my next Judaism 101, I want to talk a little bit more about how the Torah Shebe'al Peh developed, how the oral Torah developed, meaning oral Torah meaning the body of commentary on the written Torah. That's the original meaning of the oral Torah. It's not limited to that, as you will see. And on the other side, the development of the tefillah, of the prayer service.